Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Simon, and it's great being back with you as we continue in this series on embracing the unfamiliar, navigating that fear of the unknown. If some of you have experienced that, I know we've all experienced it a little bit here and there. I don't like the unknown, but sometimes I do look forward to things to anticipate something. Okay, I don't know what's going to happen here, but let's give it a try and see how it's going to affect us. We grow from those new experiences, and that's what we'd like to do. Keep growing. We don't want to get stuck in fear, holding us back like an anchor dragging along the way. We want to get going, but we want to do it wisely in such a way that creates good things instead of those things that are going to harm us. So those whys and whens and whos, those constant things that we question constantly, it's good to question, and we should be questioning. But in the questioning, let's get the answers to those questions. Sometimes we have a question and we may not have an answer to it. Ask somebody for an answer, or look up the answer. Find something that satisfies the question that you may be having on any subject or anything you might be doing. The unease linked with unfamiliarity, commonly known as xenophobia, or more precisely, neophobia. I don't know if you ever heard those words before, but those are psychological words about that fear of the unknown. When referring to a fear of new experiences would be neophobia. It's not an easy thing to analyze. It's hard to figure out sometimes, why is this happening? Why am I feeling this way? Or why am I apprehensive about taking this road instead of the other road to work or back home or whatever it might be? Well, it is a risk, isn't it? Any new thing is a risk. From a mental and emotional perspective, the fear that something unpleasant will happen, or fear of the unknown, is frequently acknowledged as a primary fear. And we spoke about some of those primary fears the last time. So acknowledged as a primary fear, serving as a root for various other specific fears or phobias. So primary fears that we discussed the last time, that they're roots that grow into other types of fears or phobias. This phenomena originates from a deep-seated human yearning of predictability and mastery over our surroundings. We want to be in control, don't we? Uncertainty can evoke a sense of loss of control, culminating in fearful emotions. Nobody likes those fearful emotions. Although sometimes it could be considered stimulating. All right, get a little stimulation. I feel good with the little stimulation. So that's taking us to that point of stress that we need to be at, because that's where we grow, is that level where there's a little stress there, a little area of fearful emotion. We don't want it to be fear. We want it to be unfamiliar and let's see what's going to happen type fear. And if we can get there, we are growing as we take those risks. Historically, unfamiliar scenarios often implied potentially upsetting events. I think it's important to realize that we're living in a world where we have so many different cultures. And for some cultures, it's essential to recognize that they may think differently about fear than you might think about fear. The perceptions of fear can significantly be different from people who live up north to people who live down south, or to people who live in mountains versus people who live in valleys, or people who live in the northern hemisphere of the world versus the southern hemisphere. I was reading the other day, 90% of the population live in the northern hemisphere of the world. Can you imagine that? I thought, wow, 90%. What's going on there? Well, they're culturally going to be perceiving fears differently, perhaps, than the southern hemisphere of the world, where only 10% of the population resides. I mean, it's just incredible. Societal beliefs, norms, and values shape how fear is experienced and expressed. For instance, some cultures may view the expression of fear as a sign of weakness, while others might accept it as a natural response. One compelling example we can find in the Bible across cultures and groups of peoples, religions, families, friends, levels of society. We can see all that in the Bible, and it's a compelling example that there is a profound impact occurring when societal beliefs and norms and values is found in the history that we read. And in the Bible, a good example of that is the 12 spies sent to scout the promised land in the book of Numbers in chapters 13 and 14. 10 of what we might call the fear-based spies report back with fearful account, emphasizing the strength and size of the Canaanite inhabitants and fortified nature of the cities. Oh, whoa, they're big, they're this, they're that. It's looking at the negative, looking at the downside. They didn't see any upside to what they were seeing. They said, "The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are great size. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." So they were transferring and projecting their own thoughts and feelings onto the others, assuming everyone else was thinking they look like grasshoppers also. This report spread fear among the Israelites, influencing their perception of the task ahead and shaking their faith in God's promise. The other two spies, the ones who were not fear-based, offer a different perspective grounded in faith and trust in God's promise, or confidence in God. Well, God said this, so we have confidence, we'll get through this. They attempt to reassure the people by saying, "The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, He'll lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us." They were looking at the upside, the good things that were in the land, those things that were positive about it, unlike the fear-based group that were doing the opposite. "Only don't rebel," they said, "against the Lord." Stay confident in the Lord is what they were saying. "And don't be afraid of the people of the land, because we'll devour them," they said. "Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them." Well, it's easy to say, hard to do. But this narrative highlights 4 key points about cultural perceptions of fear. The first is collective influence on fear perception. That is, it's not just about you, it's about how others can make you feel, or how you can make others feel. The 10 fear-based spies reports demonstrate that their beliefs were negative, scary, threatening, dark, and that got passed along to the others. So the societal beliefs and narratives were amplified in fear based on what they were saying, even in the face of divine promises, God's promises and examples of the past, of things that have happened in the past. I mean, look at all those miracles that occurred, and it's all history, and it's all proven out, so we have the evidence of it all. And look at all those things, and yet they still didn't have confidence in God, because the fear-based thoughts that were spreading became stronger than the memories of the miracles. coming from God, their protection that was given to them by God. The Israelites' reaction showcases a collective fear that overrides individual courage and faith. So in other words, if you're in a group, you're going to be more easily influenced by what the group thinks and feels than you are as an individual, which is why it's so important to be in healthy groups that are positive, groups that have good thoughts, pure thoughts, holy thoughts, as the Bible tells us to think on those things that are in the upper room of the brain, the upstairs, the top half of your brain where good thinking is located, and all the problem solving and everything is up in that upper room of the brain. You want to be around people that are thinking upstairs, not downstairs in the basement where fear and apprehension is located. And it illustrates how cultural narratives can shape the experience of expression of fear. The second is variability in fear perception. Joshua and Caleb, who were faith-based in their approach of what they were seeing, differing perspectives underscores their belief, their faith, how they saw life. And when we have faith or confidence in God, it strengthens us, it bolsters us, it empowers us. And that empowerment, as we've spoken about before, is a passion. And passion does give power, doesn't it? It gives motivation. It gives you a drive. And we want good passion. We want positive passion. Faith-based passion helps give us that. But fear-based passion does the opposite. Everything looks negative. We're critical, we're cynical. We see the downside to everything. When something bad may happen, and bad things do happen, all we can see is the bad. We can't even see any good. It's like a switch that gets flipped on, and all we can see is bad. And yet there may be a ton of good things, but we can't even see it when we're fear-based. So there can be significant variability in how individuals perceive and respond to fear. Their faith-based approach contrasts sharply with the fear-based response of the majority, highlighting the role of personal beliefs and values in shaping one's perception of fear. The third is fear and decision-making. If I'm afraid when I get up in the morning, my decisions for the entire day is going to be based on fear, apprehension, worry, concern, self-protection. And that's going to make me selfish, thinking of myself to protect myself through the day. So certainly I don't want to wake up fearful. And if I have a bad dream and I am waking up based on that bad dream, and I might feel a little apprehensive or fearful, why am I feeling this way? Well, I'm immediately going to counter that with good thoughts, right thoughts. I'm going to not let the switch flip off all the good things. I'm going to turn that dimmer switch on and switch back over to, okay, wait a minute, that was a dream. It made me feel bad. Boy, these good things happened yesterday, and there's good things going to happen today, and I'm looking forward to this, and I'm looking forward to that, and I'm even looking forward to going back to bed tonight. Finding those, at least one good thing grows into 2 and 3 good things. Before you know it, by the time you walk out the door, you're not fearful anymore. You're not apprehensive anymore. But it's an exercise that you have to do. And God helps us when we have faith, when we're believing in the divine. It strengthens us. It gives us that little extra something that we need. Everybody has faith in something. You turn on your car, That's faith. I'm trusting it. I believe it's going to turn on. I don't sit there thinking, I wonder if it's going to start. Now, if you've been having battery trouble, you're going to start wondering if it's going to start. But most of the time you don't have battery trouble. It just starts right up. That's faith. You have faith the sun's going to come up every morning. You have faith it's going to go down every night. You have faith in all sorts of things. You have faith if you go to the restaurant, you're going to get food, and you might not like it, but you're going to get food because they got it there. That's faith. We're exercising faith on a continual basis throughout the day. The Israelites' community response to the spies, the fear-based spies reports, illustrates how fear can influence decision-making processes, leading to choices that diverge from one's best interests or divine directives, God's directives to us. The fear-induced desire to return to Egypt, despite its associations with slavery, reflects a preference to a known hardship over an unknown future, fear of the unknown. A phenomenon still observable in various cultures and contexts today. And the fourth is spiritual dimensions of fear. The narrative also touches on the narrative of the 12 spies and the 10 fear-based spies also touches on the spiritual dimensions of fear, particularly how faith in God's promises can offer a counter-narrative to fear. Joshua and Caleb's stance, they were the ones who saw things in a positive way, in a faith-based way. Their stance offers a biblical example of how spiritual beliefs and trust in divine providence can challenge and reshape cultural perceptions of fear. It becomes evident that cultural, societal, and spiritual factors intricately intertwine. It's like a web, intertwining, shaping how fear is experienced and expressed. We've seen a lot of that with COVID. And in writing this, in my article that I wrote, I added to it, and I have to add it onto the blog, but so much was learned over COVID, and the fear base, the exposure of the news, the information that was given to us was so strongly fear-based that it influenced so many into making very poor decisions. There was no transparency there. The biblical example of the 10 fear-based spies offers a profound lens in a similar way that we experienced over that time period with COVID, through which to examine and understand the complex interplay between culture, society, and fear, providing valuable insights. In other words, are you going to learn from what happened during COVID, or are you just going to repeat it? We had talked about before how history doesn't repeat itself, people repeat history. So it's the people that cause history to be repeated. If we allow that, it will repeat again. And in fact, each time when it tends to repeat a little worse than the previous. It intensifies. We don't want that to happen, so are we going to learn from that? Are we going to grow through that experience? It provides a valuable insight for both historical understanding and contemporary applications. So here in the Bible gives us an example of how culturally fear can influence the perception of people, even from just 10 people, spread like wildfire, that fear among the entire group. Clinically, excessive fear can lead to anxiety disorders, phobias, and other mental issues. Doesn't mean you have to be born that way, but if you're influenced that way, sure. The other day, my grandson came down, and I think he's 6, 7 years old, and he's on the bed, and he's playing, and he's talking about bugs, and I said, yeah, I don't like bugs on my bed, and I don't let the dogs on the bed because I don't want any bugs on my bed, and he looks at me, and his eyes going, oh, and I thought, oh no, I shouldn't have said that, because that's influencing. And that's what we do, as parents, grandparents, we influence our children in a good way. We want to influence them positively, but every once in a while we slip up and we might say something, and those kids, they're, and they're grasping it. And if they're ready, if it's fertile soil at that moment, whatever age they might be in, and they receive whatever little thing that might have been said, it can affect them the rest of their life. It can create anxiety, it can create fear of the unknown, and so on. And so it's such a responsibility as parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and all that with our kids to influence them in positive ways, because if not, the example of the spies in Israel in the Old Testament is going to come true, because it's going to affect so many. Understanding the mechanisms of fear is crucial for developing effective treatments, such as Christian faith-based counseling or cognitive behavioral therapy, which often includes exposure therapy and other fear reduction techniques. Fear has many shades. It's layers. A layer of fear here, a layer of fear there, this type of fear, that type of fear. It gives significant implications in various fields, from psychology and neuroscience to spiritual and cultural domains. Understanding fear is vital for addressing and treating fear-related disorders and fostering overall emotional and spiritual well-being. We have to work at understanding our fear. What am I afraid of? Through the day, think about your day today. When I feel afraid or anxious or nervous about something, okay, what am I feeling? Write it down, put it in your phone. Write down, I'm feeling this way, thinking this thought at this time of day, and then go back over it at the end of the day. Now, why was I feeling that way? Why did I have apprehension at the stoplight? What was going on in my mind? What was I thinking? And how can I handle that better tomorrow? How can I do better with it tomorrow? And when we think that way, we're actually causing those neural pathways to stretch out. The dendrites are stretching out, and you have new pathways connecting. When you're thinking positively, the new pathways are going to be positive pathways. They're going to be growth pathways. But if you're thinking negative, hopeless, helpless, powerless, those pathways are going to grow in that direction. And tomorrow it's only going to be stronger, more difficult at that stoplight. So we want to identify those things and understand them. Why am I, oh, you know what? I remember when Mom and Dad were yelling at each other when I was 5 years old and we were at a stoplight. It could be something as simple as that, but you forget those things. You don't think about those things. But suddenly, oh, I remember that. And that memory keeps coming back every once in a while. Yeah, that's probably why it is. Okay, God, as a faith-based person, I talk to the Lord. Lord, what do you want me to know about that? What do you have to say to me about it? And I might get scripture that might come up that I've read in the past, or I might get thoughts, or I might just, being a visual learner, see the memory, see the Lord with me in the car, and Him discussing it with me at that moment. And it can happen anyway, but I'm working through it is the goal. I'm not just letting it simmer and stew and become a problem for later. Well, I hope this was helpful for you today. Next time on Embracing the Unfamiliar, we're going to talk about fear of the unknown impacting lives. I hope you'll join us. May your troubles be minor, blessings more, and happiness come through your door. God bless.